Before we go any further, strap in. This wasn't just a segment. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was a televised trap sprung live. Steve Harvey walked into the studio that morning with the confidence of a man who had seen every side of show business and conquered it all. From stand-up comedy stages to best-selling books, from hosting game shows to anchoring beloved talk shows, he was a juggernaut. A man who could walk into any room and own it. And that's exactly how it began. He emerged onto the view set wearing a deep navy suit sharp enough to slice through steel. His tie was patterned just enough to announce, "I'm here and you know it." The audience exploded the instant his shoes hit the polished floor. Cheers, applause, screams, a collective roar celebrating a man who had made millions laugh, cry, and rethink their lives. Steve waved, that perfectly timed grin lighting up his face. He did the jacket tug his version of a crown adjustment. He sat, he relaxed, he fully believed he was among friends. Whoopi Goldberg set the tone with warm authority, the welcoming admiral of daytime television. Steve Harvey, everybody. Applause thundered again. "Always a pleasure to be with you ladies," Steve said smoothly. He spoke like a man who had already won whatever moment this was going to be. Sarah Haynes jumped in with enthusiasm. "Steve, your new book on relationships is already a huge hit. What inspired you to write another guide for couples?" "Easy question. Safe ground." Steve leaned forward, the charm flowing effortlessly. "Well," he began, "I've always believed that," but then it shifted, barely, subtly, dangerously. A new voice cut in sharp like broken glass. "Joy, Behar." Steve felt it the moment she spoke, a cold breeze across warm waters. "So, Steve," she said, leaning back with an expression that was more challenge than curiosity, "you write about how women should handle men. But a lot of people think your advice sounds old-fashioned, even sexist. What do you say to those critics?" Whoopi's eyes flicked sideways, the kind of seasoned look that silently begged, "Joy, please don't." Sarah swallowed. Sunny Hostin stiffened. Steve's internal alarm went from a quiet buzz to a flashing siren. But the cameras were rolling, and he still believed foolishly he could charm his way past any storm. "Well," he chuckled, "any time you speak on relationships, you're gonna upset somebody." But Joy didn't let him finish. "You've also joked a lot about women, right? About what they should and shouldn't do. Do you think that's why some people say you don't respect women?" The audience's laughter flickered out like a blown fuse. Steve blinked slowly. He inhaled once, deeply controlled. "Joy," he said carefully, "I love women. My entire life, career, success all built on respecting women. But I'm also a comedian. I tell jokes. Jokes are supposed to. So you blame the audience for not understanding." She snapped. The trap had sprung. This wasn't a question. This was a verdict waiting for him to defend himself. The room, the nation leaned in. Sunny tried to intervene. "Well, Joy," but Joy was locked in. Target acquired. "No survivors left behind. You tell women they should act a certain way, or they won't get a man. Isn't that outdated? Aren't you just reinforcing stereotypes that hold women back?" Steve sat back now, shoulders stiffening beneath the navy armor. That grin gone. "It's about standards," Steve replied, voice deeper, measured. "I tell women, don't lower yourself to fit somebody who doesn't deserve you." But Joy pressed harder, relentless, which is ironic, considering you've publicly admitted you weren't always the best husband. A gasp washed over the studio. Whoopi straightened sharply. But Joy steamrolled forward, eyes glittering with the thrill of confrontation. "How do you justify trying to teach other people how to love, when you learn the hard way by hurting the women in your own life?" This time, even the cameras seemed to flinch. Steve's jaw worked silently for a second, a man swallowing fire. Finally, he spoke. "Because I learned," he said firmly. "Because I grew. Because I changed. And if I can help someone else avoid the mistakes I made, then that's worth talking about." It was strong. It was sincere. Joy wasn't finished. "But you profit off those mistakes, don't you?" A knife twist. Steve felt it. So did everyone watching. He straightened, posture shifting into command, the entertainer gone, the warrior arriving. "You invited me here to take shots," he said quietly, "and that's fine. I can take a hit. But if you think I'm going to sit here and let you rewrite my entire life as a punchline..." He leaned forward, eyes locked on hers. "Then you don't know Steve Harvey." Silence swallowed the stage whole. Steve continued, voice low, but amplified by sheer presence. "I didn't get here because I was perfect. I got here because I was real, because I messed up, because I failed, and because I refused to stay down. Every word was a stone placed firmly in the foundation of his legacy. You want to talk about my past? Great. That's what made me. But don't you dare pretend the only thing I've ever done is fall. The audience surged into applause, fierce, protective. He didn't smile, he didn't soften, he just let the truth sit there, heavy as thunder. Joy leaned back surprised, even respect flickering behind irritation. Whoopi stepped back into command. We're gonna take a break, she announced, voice calm but urgent. The screens faded to commercial. But the battle. Absolutely, here is your paragraph transformed into a ***, polished, dramatic, ~1000, word English narrative ***, continuing the same fictional style and structure we've been building. ###***, The View. The Steve Harvey Ambush Part Roman. 2. Fictional entertainment, narrative ***, this was his zone. The place where he thrived. Relationship advice, that perfect fusion of comedy, wisdom, and charm only Steve Harvey could deliver. Sarah had given him the opening, and he stepped right into it, like a seasoned general marching into his own territory. You know, Sarah, Steve began, his voice a smooth, rhythmic melody dripping with confidence. After decades hosting Family Feud and connecting with thousands of families, I've learned one thing above all else: communication is the absolute key. The crowd leaned in. He had them. He painted vivid stories, newlyweds clinging to affection, but terrified of messing up long. Married couples locked in silent battles no one else could see. Hearts breaking quietly behind polite smiles. People who had forgotten how to speak or listen to the person they loved most. He shared the humor, the absurdity, the heartbreak, all the wisdom earned through triumphs and mistakes. The audience responded in waves of laughter and thoughtful murmurs. He was in full command, a king in his court. But while everyone else glowed with admiration, ***, Joy Behar did not move. ***, no nods, no smiles, no warmth. Her gaze cut across the table like the glint of a drawn blade. Her expression was tight, jaw locked, eyes narrowed, shoulders coiled like a serpent waiting for the perfect strike. Something predatory was brewing. Steve didn't notice, not yet. He continued shining beneath the lights. When couples stopped really listening to each other, he declared, his tone filled with the weight of lived truth, that's when real problems begin. Murmurs of agreement rolled through the audience like a gentle tide. Sunny Hostin smiled warmly. Sarah chimed in enthusiastically. That's beautiful, and the reviews for your book have been incredible. But Joy. Joy was shifting in her seat now, slowly, deliberately, like a lioness stalking wounded prey. Whoopi sensed it. A flicker of something cautious passed across her legendary features, but her attempt to guide the conversation elsewhere came half a second too late. Joy leaned forward, the strike inevitable. Steve Harvey, a man with a built-in radar for hostility, felt a sudden drop in the room's temperature. He chuckled lightly, trying to keep the atmosphere loose. Joy, you look like you've got something on your mind. It was an invitation he didn't mean to give, a door he didn't mean to open. Joy's eyes narrowed a fraction, and then she pounced. Well, Steve, she began, her tone dripping with a controlled venom. You say communication is key, but a lot of people think your views on relationships are pretty outdated, even sexist. A collective inhale rippled through the studio. Steve froze, surprise blinking behind his professional smile. Joy continued before he could even form a response. You tell women what they should wear, how they should act, what they should accept. Isn't that a little controlling, a little patriarchal? Her words crackled like electricity. Whoopi shifted, bracing for impact. Sunny sat straighter, eyes widened. Sarah looked like she wanted to sink into the floor. Steve tried to keep his tone measured, the warmth in his voice dimming, but still present. I'm not here to control anyone. I'm just Joy sliced through his sentence. And you've joked a lot about women needing to be quiet, needing to play a role to keep a man. Do you really think that builds healthy relationships? The audience wasn't laughing anymore. The festive atmosphere gone. Steve inhaled slowly, the patience of a man who had endured battles before. Well, Joy, he said, voice deeper now, I love women, always have. My success built on respecting women. But I'm also a comedian. Jokes sometimes, so you're blaming the audience for your words. Joy threw back, relentless. This wasn't curiosity. This was combat. She wasn't interested in understanding. She wanted a confession. She wanted a collapse. A veteran of public scrutiny, Steve recognized the strategy now. Frame. Corner, attack. He leaned back, the smile gone, the man beneath the persona stepping forward. Joy, he said, tone sharpened. I didn't get this far by disrespecting anyone. I talk the way I talk because real people out there talk the same way. They live this stuff. I've lived this stuff. Joy didn't blink. Right? You've lived divorce. You've admitted your mistakes publicly. Do you really think you should be telling women how to find a man when you've messed up so many times? A dagger driven deep. The air cracked. Someone in the audience gasped aloud. Sonny tried to step in. Well, in fairness, Joy ignored her completely. Steve's jaw tightened. The man who had walked in with swagger now sat carved in stone. Finally his voice emerged. I don't give advice because I'm flawless, he said, low and steady. I give advice because I learned the hard way. I grew, I changed, and if I can help somebody else avoid the pain I went through, then that's worth every joke people want to twist. The audience clapped, tentative at first, then stronger, but Joy wasn't done. And yet you profit off those mistakes, don't you? There it was, the kill shot. The studio lights felt hotter now, no longer a spotlight, but an interrogation lamp. Steve leaned in, fire in his eyes. If you think I came here to be disrespected, he said without a quiver, you got the wrong man. Joy held his gaze. A silent battle waged across the table. Whoopi, the last line of defense, stepped in immediately. We're taking a break, she said firmly, voice the only stable thing left on the set. The feed cut to commercial. The silence that fell across the studio was the kind that demanded attention, thick, unnerving, impossible to ignore. Joy Behar's words lingered like smoke in the air, sharp enough to make everyone at the table shift in their seats. This was supposed to be a celebratory interview, a light promotional appearance for Steve Harvey's new relationship had vice book, not a public interrogation. Well, Steve, Joy began again. Her voice dipped in an unsettling calm. I've been reading your book, and I have to ask. She paused, letting suspense coil like a snake preparing to strike. Don't you think it's a little hypocritical for someone who's been married 3 times to be giving relationship advice? It struck with the precision of a sniper shot. The reaction was immediate and visible. The audience, moments ago bursting with laughter, now sat stiff and breathless. Sonny Hostin's eyebrows climbed so high they practically vanished into her hairline. Sarah Haynes, whose sunny disposition was usually unshakable, looked like she had seen a ghost. Even Whoopi Goldberg, seasoned, cautious, perceptive, blinked hard, as though bracing for impact. The cameras zoomed in on Steve Harvey, catching the half-second crack in his trademark smile. That flicker of vulnerability, a tiny fracture revealing the sting beneath, was enough to send a ripple of shock through the room. But Steve Harvey was nothing if not a seasoned performer. He steadied himself almost instantly, forcing the warmth back into his smile, though his jaw remained tense. Joy, he said, voice even and composed, I think my experiences, both the successes and the struggles, actually give me more insight into what works and what doesn't. He placed his hands firmly on the table, grounding himself, making sure the calm he projected felt intentional, not forced. Every relationship teaches us something, he added with a measured nod. But Joy was not looking for wisdom. She was sharpening a narrative, but Steve. She probed, leaning forward, eyes glinting with challenge. You've publicly talked about your first 2 marriages ending in divorce. How can you sit here and tell other people how to make their marriages work when you couldn't make yours work? That was the moment the show's tone shifted from date. I'm talk banter to primetime battlefield. Whoopi jumped in, urgency coating her every word. Joy, I think what Steve is saying is that, no, Whoopi. Joy cut her off sharply, hand raised not in discussion, but in command. Let him answer. The audience gasped. This was no longer a debate, this was a takedown. Behind the cameras, producers exchanged frantic glances. A couple of them hovered near the stage manager, as if expecting that anyone would step in before the situation detonated further. But nobody moved. The drama was live. The tension was money. I think our viewers deserve to know. Joy continued, her tone sharpening into accusation. Why they should take relationship advice from someone with such a track record. Steve inhaled deeply, a slow, deliberate breath through his nose, his patience tightening like a fist inside his chest. He turned to Joy, Eyes steady, posture squared. A man refusing to crumble. Well, he answered carefully, I'm not sure what you're trying to get at here. Oh, he knew exactly what she was getting at, but he refused to hand her the satisfaction of saying it aloud. I've been happily married to my wife, Marjorie, for over 15 years now. He continued, voice gaining weight and steel. We have a beautiful blended family, and yes, I learned from my past mistakes. That's what growth looks like. Joy smiled a smile that wasn't a smile, more like a blade. She repeated a single word, growth. Her laugh that followed was sharp enough to draw blood. Or is it just good marketing? Gasps erupted again, not scattered this time, but full and unified, a wave of disbelief sweeping through the studio audience. Joy crossed her arms over her chest, constructing a fortress of superiority. I mean, how convenient, she said, leaning back in her chair, that your personal struggles become best. Selling books. Sarah looked mortified, hand flying to her mouth as if trying to physically hold back the drama. Sunny leaned forward as though poised to leap to Steve's defense. Even Whoopi, steady like foundation rock, shifted uncomfortably in her seat, silently begging for a commercial break. But Joy had tasted blood. She wasn't stopping. And another thing, Steve, she said, her voice lowering to an icy calm that always precedes a storm. Those comedy specials from the 90s. She let the words hang, ensuring everyone knew she had more ammunition. Some of that material about women, she continued, each syllable deliberate, it hasn't aged well, has it? So how can anyone be sure your advice isn't just the same old outdated thinking packaged with a glossy new cover? Steve placed his mug down gently, was the intention, but emotion made it land with a dull thud the microphones eagerly amplified. The sound echoed like a gavel. His expression hardened not anger, but boundary, a line in the sand drawn by a man who had been pushed enough. Joy, he said, turning toward her fully now, voice deeper, body language a fortress of control. I came here to talk about helping people build stronger relationships, not to be put on trial for things I said decades ago as a comedian. The audience held its breath. It felt like the walls themselves were listening. Steve leaned forward slightly, not threatening but resolute. Comedy evolves. People evolve. He said firmly, I've evolved. Joy stared back, unblinking, measuring whether his resolve would withstand another strike. And in that electric pause, a second that felt like a minute, the entire studio understood. Steve Harvey wasn't backing down. Not today. His voice remained level, but there was no mistaking the shift. The warmth that had once colored his tone was now wrapped in steel. A boundary had been set, a warning delivered. Comedy evolves, Steve repeated, his eyes locked on Joy's with unwavering resolve. People evolve, and I think my life, my marriage, and my track record speak for themselves. The room was still, suspended on a thread. A few audience members attempted a cautious clap, hesitant, unsure if they were supporting the right side of history. Others simply stared, their faces etched with disbelief at the raw, unfiltered confrontation unfolding before them. They hadn't come here for war, yet here it was, live and unavoidable. This was no longer a playful disagreement. This wasn't banter or probing journalism. This was Joy Behar conducting a full-scale interrogation on live television, with a grin that suggested she enjoyed the chaos she was unleashing. And Steve Harvey, the man who had built a career on humor, charm, and an unshakable presence, refused to be broken. The tension in the studio had evolved into something volatile. A spark was all it would take to blow the moment into national headlines. Joy provided the spark. Does it, though? She snapped back instantly. Her voice, sharp as exposed wire, ignited the charged air. There was no pause, no courtesy breath given to the gravity of her own accusation. Because from where I'm sitting, Steve, she said, leaning forward, voice dripping with ice, it looks a whole lot like you're profiting from giving advice on something you've struggled with your entire life. A low murmur rippled through the crowd. It wasn't gasping anymore this time, it was fear. Joy wasn't just poking the bear. She was poking a man on the edge of his patience. Steve's composure flickered. Just for a beat, a blink. The strike had landed. Hard he opened his mouth, a response ready to fire, but Joy wasn't finished, and frankly. She continued, the emphasis on that one word twisting the knife she had already plunged deep. Some of your past comments about women, comments you made willingly, suggest you might not be the best person to be telling them how to find love. The crowd audibly recoiled. Not a gasp or recoil, like they had just witnessed a punch. Sunny Hostin's jaw dropped in disbelief, her eyes darting nervously between Joy and Steve as if searching for an emergency exit. Sarah Haynes looked like she would rather evaporate than be trapped in the blast radius. Even Whoopi, someone who had once navigated a live brawl between co-hosts without blinking, seemed genuinely stunned that Joy was not pulling back. Whoopi tried to break in, voice urgent. Maybe we should talk about the positive feedback the book has received, she offered, clinging to the last thread of control, but Joy ignored her. Her attention was fixed solely on Steve, like a tiger that had finally cornered its prey. Is there positive feedback? Joy asked, arching an eyebrow, her disbelief loud enough to echo. Or is it just great PR from someone who knows how to package and sell a narrative? The studio audience was dead silent now. No clapping, no murmuring, just silence, suffocating silence. Steve's gaze sharpened. Every muscle in his body went still. It was the stillness before a storm. You know what, Joy? He said finally, slowly, carefully, each word polished with restraint that looked painful to maintain. You don't have to like me. You don't even have to agree with a single thing I've ever said. His hands pressed against each other, tightly, knuckles turning white. A silent war happening beneath the table. But attacking my character and my family, questioning my marriage, that's crossing a line. Joy tilted her head. Truth tends to cross lines, she replied coolly. That did it. Steve turned toward the audience, toward the millions watching at home, and the shift was seismic. He was no longer defending himself from Joy Behar. He was speaking for every viewer who'd ever felt judged for failing before eventually succeeding. Yes, I've been divorced, he said. Yes, my path has been messy. I've stumbled. I've gotten back up. I didn't come from perfection, I came from trial and error, just like everybody else. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried, it filled the room, it shook something loose, and if there's anyone out there who thinks you have to be perfect to encourage others, then nobody on earth could help anybody. A spark of applause erupted louder, firmer now. Genuine, it grew, spreading like a rising wave. Joy stared at the crowd, stunned that they were choosing him, not her. Steve looked back at Joy, calm but unbreakable. That's what growth looks like, he repeated, reclaiming the word she had mocked. Whoopi jumped in at lightning speed, her cue to rescue the moment had finally arrived. Well, clearly, there's a lot of passion at this table today, she said with a forced laugh. Let's take a breath, take a moment, and when we come back, we'll talk about Steve's book in a way that doesn't end in a fistfight. The audience laughed gratefully, desperate for the tension to lift. The director frantically counted down to commercial. 3, 2, 1. The screen cut to an advertisement, but at that table the battle was far from over. Joy crossed her arms, leaning back, unrepentant. Steve leaned forward, eyes locked on hers. This isn't over. Their expressions said without a word, and everyone watching at home and in the studio knew.